Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're turning our attention underground, you could say. We're exploring the roots of sustainable innovation.
And crucially, the challenge of building trust around something the public rarely sees, if ever.
Exactly. It's a vital area we're diving into. Agrobiologicals.
Yeah.
So things like biostimulants and biofertilizers.
And these aren't just, minor adjustments. They represent a pretty fundamental shift in farming. We're talking better soil health, crops that are more resilient, and importantly, less reliance on traditional chemical inputs.
Yeah, they're essential tools if you're serious about sustainability, like the goals in the European Green Deal, for instance.
Absolutely. They're talked about as really powerful tools for a greener future.
But as we learned from the Trust Masterclass 4, which is our source material for this deep dive, having that power, that potential, it's only half the story, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Innovation needs to go hand in hand with public trust. And the Trust project, that's an EU-funded initiative under Horizon Europe, it's focused precisely on this problem. How do we overcome public distrust and maybe industry hesitation too in biotech?
Right. By promoting transparency, getting people involved, inclusive governance, I think they call it.
Exactly. So our job here is to kind of synthesize what the experts were saying. The hopes, sure, but also the hesitations, the questions that people have, questions the industry needs to face if these biologicals are going to scale up properly.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting with the science. If we're talking about biostimulants, what are they specifically? Because the name, it sounds a bit like fertilizer, but, well, we know they're different. We're drawing here on Professor Patrick Dujardin's insights.
Yeah, Professor Dujardin made it clear. They are products that stimulate natural processes inside the plant itself.
Okay.
Think of it like this. They aren't the food that's the fertilizer.
Yeah.
And they aren't the bodyguard that's the pesticide. They're sort of in between. More like a personal trainer, maybe. Helping the plant use what's already there, nutrients, water more efficiently. Boosting its own sort of innate ability to handle stress from the environment.
That personal trainer analogy, that actually helps quite a bit. And the promise around them, it sounds huge. We hear all the buzzwords: resilience to climate change, big cuts in synthetic inputs. It almost sounds like a miracle cure for agriculture.
Well, yeah.
Is that realistic? Or is that maybe the industry setting the bar a bit too high?
And that's the tension, isn't it? The hope versus the reality check. The potential is immense, especially for handling stress.
Right.
But the experts do caution that right now, the claims. They sometimes get ahead of the actual data. We need, better standardization, stronger trials, better regulatory oversight to make sure these products really do work consistently.
And here's where it gets really tricky, maybe particularly for the farmer trying to use them, this issue of variability. The experts pointed out that how well they work can differ massively. It depends on the crop, the soil, the microbes in it, and the local weather conditions.
Yeah, and this variability, it's a core scientific challenge. But it feeds directly into the trust problem, too.
How so?
Well, the difficulty is, product X might work wonders in one field, say in Belgian, loamy soil boost yields. Cut water needs, fantastic.
Okay.
But then you try it in Danish clay soil, or maybe just under slightly different temperatures, and, might do very little. You'd be pretty ineffective.
Wow. That's more than just a headache. How do you market something consistently? How do you build trust when its effect is tied so closely to a local, living, and often invisible ecosystem?
Exactly. It sounds like we've got this innovation that really needs hyper-local, transparent data.
Yeah.
But the market, understandably, wants standardized, mass-produced results. It's a mismatch.
It really is.
And that's why transparency is just so crucial for scaling up responsibly. If the public, and maybe even more importantly the farmer, only sees vague terms like natural or bio, without clear, independent evidence that explains this variability, well, they'll quickly get skeptical about the whole category if just one product doesn't work for them.
Okay, so if the science does hold genuine potential, and there's obviously huge pressure for farming to get more sustainable, why isn't adoption happening faster?
That question takes us right out of the lab and into the regulatory maze. Let's look at that regulatory side now, drawing on what Jose Carvalho, an industry leader, shared.
Right. What's the holdup there?
The core problem seems to be a major regulatory misalignment. We're essentially forcing these unique biological products, often based on microbes. They break down quickly. They work in very specific ways through the exact same complex, lengthy, and tox-focused frameworks that were designed for synthetic chemicals. Chemicals that can stick around in the environment for years.
So wait, We're using the blueprint designed for long-lasting chemical pesticides to evaluate living, often short-lived biologicals.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
And that process is often incredibly expensive and slow. It creates these huge bottlenecks that can just stifle sustainable innovation before it even gets a chance to reach the market.
That sounds like a systemic barrier.
It is. And the industry, through groups like IBMA, they're pushing hard for a more tailored approach, a fit-for-purpose framework, they call it, something that actually recognizes the different risk profile and the benefits of biologicals.
So what does this misalignment, this square peg, round hole situation actually mean for public trust? I mean, if a product takes, say, 10 years and millions of euros just to get approved, doesn't that signal high risk, even if the product itself is actually low risk?
Absolutely it does. The regulatory system itself sends messages, it communicates, and right now the system's sending confusing signals. Trust relies heavily on the perception of how safety is checked. People, farmers, consumers, they need reassurance.
Yeah.
Is the system transparent? Are different voices, different stakeholders actually heard when shaping the rules? If the whole process looks opaque, or maybe seems biased towards the big chemical companies, well, credibility just takes a nosedive.
But hang on, isn't some of this maybe on the industry itself? If companies are out there over-promising what these biologicals can do, exaggerated marketing claims, that's bound to lead to skepticism from farmers and consumers eventually. Why should regulators or the public trust companies that do that?
That's a really fair point, and it's why the experts weren't just calling for deregulation. The solution they stressed is more like smart regulation, combined with open science and clear, honest communication.
Right.
Misinformation, exaggerated claims, they tend to flourish when there's a lack of good data or when good products are stuck. If a really well-tested, effective product is caught up in regulatory delays, maybe less proven, less scrutinized alternatives jump in to fill that gap.
And that loops us back to this idea of co-creation, doesn't it? The regulatory view explicitly mentioned that farmers, the end users, they need to be part of the whole process development evaluation.
Yes, exactly. It's not just about getting a stamp of approval from an office somewhere in Brussels. It's about ensuring the products are genuinely trusted by the people actually using them in the fields.
Building legitimacy through participation.
That's it, which leads us perfectly into the real-world findings. What did the B-Trust co-creation sessions, the ones with farmers and consumers in Belgium and Denmark, actually find? We heard about this from Charlotte Boone and Nina Kellner.
Okay, let's start with the consumers. How much do everyday people actually know about, say, biostimulants?
Well, the big takeaway was not much. Awareness is really low. For most consumers, the term biostimulant is just vague. It doesn't mean much.
Right.
People might loosely connect it with natural or maybe better for the environment. But there's a definite lack of understanding about what these things do or how they're different from regular fertilizer. We're starting from a very low base, it seems.
Gosh, if consumers don't even recognize the word, how do you even start building trust beyond just hoping they pick it up at the supermarket? And what about farmers? They're the direct users. Surely they know more.
Farmers are definitely more familiar, yes. But even they express confusion. Confusion about the practical differences between biostimulants, biofertilizers, and all the other inputs they use.
Interesting.
This kind of technical ambiguity, it's a real barrier to them adopting these things. And what came through loud and clear from the farmers was a demand for practical, clear information.
Okay.
And this is crucial. They want that information from independent sources, not just from the companies trying to sell them the product.
That independence point, that feels like the core trust driver, doesn't it? People wanting to know, okay, who's behind this product, who really benefits, and who checked the claims independently, especially for my kind of farm, my conditions.
Exactly. It really underlines the huge role that independent research bodies, maybe agricultural extension services, need to play here. And the experts in the Masterclass, they really hammer this home.
Yeah.
This isn't just about whether the product technically works. It's about values.
Values. How so?
Well, participants brought up concerns about greenwashing. They asked really tough but vital questions like, are these new products going to help smaller, maybe struggling farmers stay afloat? Or are they only really affordable or practical for huge industrial farms? Did they genuinely support real sustainability or just look like they do?
Those are deep ethical questions tied up in the science. Another thing that really stood out for me was the timing of engagement. Participants were really clear. They want to be involved early on.
Yes.
not just shown a finished product that's ready for market. They want a say in shaping the innovation from the start.
That's incredibly important, isn't it? It's about building a sense of ownership, not just getting people to comply or buy something.
Right.
Engaging early turns people from just passive recipients into active participants. And these insights from the B-Trust sessions, they really show it can't be a one-way street, just informing people. It has to be a genuine two-way conversation. Space to listen, to reflect, and crucially, to adapt the innovation based on those real-world concerns and knowledge.
So when we pull back and look at the big picture, what's the fundamental takeaway here? I think the synthesis is this. Agrobiologicals. Huge potential, scientifically sound potential for a more sustainable way of farming, no doubt. But whether they succeed, whether they gain public trust, that depends on so much more than just how well they perform in the field. It depends on the values, the transparency, and the participation surrounding how they're developed and regulated.
Yeah, I think we can safely say co-creation isn't just a buzzword here. It's not a nice to have or some marketing trick. It seems to be a really practical way to build legitimacy, get informed adoption, and ultimately get better, more robust results from biotech innovation right across the food system. If you want the innovation to actually work in the real world, you have to build that trust structure alongside it, maybe even first.
Innovation without trust simply doesn't take root. So if you're listening, maybe you're a policymaker thinking about new roles, or a researcher publishing data, or perhaps you're an innovator in biotech funded under Horizon Europe, maybe a small startup or part of a bigger group, we really encourage you to check out the B-Trust Forum. You can learn more about their upcoming masterclasses and, well, join this really crucial conversation.
Because the future of our food really does depend on getting that delicate balance, right? The balance between the science and societal acceptance, societal legitimacy.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.